Thanks, Terry. So have the privilege of being on this panel with some great panelists, and I'd like once I say your name, if you could maybe turn your camera on and unmute yourself and give a brief introduction, and then we'll kind of get into the questions for each panel. But we're here to discuss attracting and acquiring veteran talent, and I am joined by, first I'll start with Gary from CACI.
Great. Thank you very much. I'm happy to be on this panel. Thank you for inviting me. CACI is a longtime partner with MSSA. I'm Gary Patton. I'm the Vice President of Veteran and Military Affairs at CACI. We're a federal government contractor. We've hired dozens of MSSA graduates that provide our company expertise in a wide variety of IT skills. And I'm happy to say, proud to say, reflecting on Terry's last slide, that CACI is a veteran-ready company. I helped found our Veterans Employee Resource Group. 38% of our workforce are veterans or military spouses, combination, and have a very deeply seated veteran-friendly culture in our company that has transcended the company for over 62 years. So thank you for allowing me to be on the panel and look forward to our conversation.
Thanks, Gary. And Gary's being modest. What he didn't tell you is he's also a retired Major General in the U.S. Army, and he served for 35 years. So thank you for your service. And you and I will be voting for the same team on December 14th. Go Army. Which is also my birthday, so I hope they win. We're also joined by Scarlett from BrookSource.
Hi, everyone. Yes, so excited to be here. My name's Scarlett Harrod. I have been with BrookSource for almost 6 years now, and actually been working with MSSA for about as long as I've been at BrookSource. So I'm the manager of our Elevate program that encompasses our Project Patriot program. That is our veteran hiring and advocacy program for folks that are transitioning out of the service and getting into the tech field. So I was actually, I don't come from a military background. I always like to mention, I also didn't grow up in a military background or with family. So places like MSSA have really helped me on this journey and understanding how to hire and how to attract and interact with veteran talent as well, as I kind of started in more of just our early and career focus. So super excited to be here. Always love talking about MSSA and kind of being able to work with them. So super excited to be here as well.
Thank you, Scarlett. We also have from BrookSource Jess, so I'll introduce you both together.
Yes, I think Jess is joining at the 1:30 mark, because I know that was marked on there.
Okay.
But Jessica Olsen is our program coordinator out of the Seattle market for BrookSource. So she oversees our Elevate and Project Patriot program in the Seattle market, and then I oversee from a national perspective.
Scarlett, where are you based?
I am in Louisville, Kentucky. I forgot to say that.
And Gary, are you in Northern Virginia?
Yeah, I'm at our corporate headquarters in Reston, Virginia. CACI is all over the world, about 140 different offices. Wherever you find the military, you're likely to find CACI. But I'm at my home office today, Northern Virginia, but I work out of our corporate headquarters in Reston.
Okay, great. Thank you. We also are joined by Dylan from Apex Systems.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you, Terry, and the MSSA team. My name is Dylan Kodad. I'm the National Veteran Advocate, Aerospace and Defense Industry Analyst, and co-chair for our Military and Veteran Employee Resource Group at Apex Systems. We are a global technology solutions firm. Happy to be a part of this panel discussion. We've worked with MSSA for a number of years and absolutely love what you guys are doing. So happy to be a part of this panel. And thank you.
Thank you, Dylan. We appreciate you being here with us. And you are a Marine as well, which you did not share, right?
Correct. Semper Fi.
Thank you for your service. Also, we are joined by Brian from Northrop Grumman.
Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you, Beth, for this event. My name is Brian Bilski. I'm with Northrop Grumman. I lead our military recruiting for our aeronautics sector. Northrop Grumman is a large military defense contractor, aerospace and defense, and again, air, sea, land, as you name it. As a Marine, we cover all aspects. But I just want to say, my prior position coming before transitioning from the military was in charge of transitioning for the Marine Corps Wounded Warrior Regiment. So I just want to say thanks to all the partners on here. Thanks to Microsoft for giving our veterans, their families, and our transitioning service members opportunities to find their new journey and go on to greater things after the military. So glad to be a part of this.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate those words. We are also joined by Troy from CarMax.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Beth. I'm Troy Schulich with CarMax. I lead our veteran recruitment efforts. I've been with CarMax for about 3 years now. I've been partnered with MSSA for only about 2 years now. I'm happy to be a part of this partnership. I'm an Air Force veteran, retired from the Air Force in 2021. And as I said, I just lead all recruitment efforts for veterans and military spouses here at CarMax.
Thank you, Troy. And you are physically in Florida now?
That's correct. I'm a 100% remote worker for CarMax. We are headquartered in Richmond, Virginia, but we have locations all over the United States, 240 locations roughly across 42 states. But I am remotely in Florida, correct.
Okay, you got sick of those Pittsburgh winters?
That's 100% true.
Understand. And last but certainly not least, we have Caitlin from TIAG joining us.
Hi, good afternoon. So excited to be here on this panel. So yes, I'm Caitlin Yelenick. I am the Executive Director of Talent Management at TIAG. Much like some of the other friends on the call, we're a government contracting organization headquartered in Western Virginia. So that's where I'm out of today. But we do have regional offices across the nation and a very geographically dispersed employee base now. And we have been partnered with MSSA for as long as I've been at TIAG, which is about 8.5 years, and have a lot of great success stories. So just very grateful to be here. And as a mid-sized government contractor, always looking for really solid technical talent, we've just found a great match in the caliber of candidates and alumni that come out of the MSSA program. So it's an honor to be here and to support this effort.
Thank you, Caitlin. And really, thank you to all. You've all been wonderful partners and long-term supporters of MSSA, so we appreciate the partnership. And I also just want to point out that Caitlin is very active in bringing women into technology and is very involved in a group here in is it just in Northern Virginia, or is it national? It's called Women in Tech.
So in terms of those types of organizations, national and chapter reaches, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I knew you were very actively involved there. So good. So we'll go ahead and get started, and we're going to keep this super casual. So I'm going to probably direct the question to start with one of you, and then if others want to chime in or have something else to add, and if people on the call want to contribute, we welcome that as well. So with that, I'm going to make Gary go first, since he outranks all of us with the senior ranking. So we'll just jump into it. And basically, Gary, just wanted to ask you, can you describe a few best practices employed by CACI in engaging veteran and military spouse IT talent?
Well, I'm glad to say that rank has its privileges here. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing going first, but no, I know the panel members here got a wealth of experience and best practices this year. So I'll just cover a couple that I found to be productive and successful at CACI in the 8 years that I've run our Veterans and Military Affairs program. I think the first thing is to have a dedicated team for veterans and military affairs, veterans outreach, whatever you want to call it, but some function that connects your talent acquisition function with veterans outreach. We have about 100 recruiters at CACI. They're focused on a wide range of skill sets and networks and things. And the dedicated team that I lead, we got 4 people, 64 years of combined military service, 42 years at CACI. So I feel like we have our finger on the pulse of both the veterans and military community and the corporation and our talent needs in the company. And that dedicated team allows you to kind of serve as the connective tissue between the community and the talent acquisition function in the company. So that dedicated team, I think, really pays off. And it also provides a single point of contact, if you will, for veterans applying to jobs in the company. We seek to inform, assist, and advocate for all our veteran job applicants This morning, for example, I wrote a note to a hiring manager on a veteran that had recently met at a career fair, highlighting his credentials, explaining his suitability for the job he applied to, and thanking the hiring manager for consideration of this outstanding Army veteran as an example of advocacy. That's I love doing that. Our team loves doing that. It's not a guarantee to get hired, but I think it really helps the job applicant from the veteran community kind of get their foot in the door. Um, just another best practice I would say would be establishing and maintaining active partnerships and regular engagement with a variety of partners in the military and veterans space, like on-base transition assistance programs, where all of our military are transitioning from their active duty units to some civilian career and job opportunities, and connecting with those, and not only connecting but being an active partner. Being engaged with that tap office, serving on employer panels, providing job opportunities. I'm sitting in a resume resume writing transition workshop here before the end of the week with one of our base partners. So that sort of active engagement, it's a two-way street. The more active the company is, I think the more favorable response you get from the partner, and then that serves the the job-seeking veterans transition from the military. And you don't want the first interaction if you're transitioning from the military, you don't want your first interaction with the employer to be at the interview, the job interview. That's why I think it's really important for employers to reach out very proactively and seek opportunities with these TAP offices to interact, to allow and enable interactions with those individuals, from the industry. And not only the TAP offices, but veteran service organizations, state and federal employment agencies, and corporate partners like MSSA. I think these are all, wide variety, keep a diverse sort of portfolio of partnerships there, I think is a very good best practice. And then just the last thing I'll say is when we're talking to job seekers from the community, the things we like to point out are not only the compensation aspects of the job you might find at CHI, but the other employee value proposition elements such as benefits, leader development programs, the culture and how we foster that culture, ERGs, communities of practice, flexible time off. These are things that may not be familiar to your transitioning service member as they're looking strictly at sort of salary as the sole value, and in their next job. But there are other things I think that we need to point out. We need to make the opportunity to point things out to our transitioning service members of other benefits and values that they can seek in their future employer. So just a couple best practices. I'm sure other panel members got more to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Those are some great insights. Would anyone else like to offer things that their company is doing? I know Brooksource always has some good. Would you be willing to say some things, Scarlett?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually, I really love what Gary said about like, you don't want your first interaction with that veteran to be at the interview stage. Going in, I feel like building that trust with people and working with them early on in their transition and talking to them earlier is a huge best practice that we do of getting involved on the bases, but also obviously with MSSA helping with things like professional development week and really starting to talk to people early on and building that trust with them, so that we can help them find opportunities very well through our Project Patriot program. So Brooksource, we're obviously like an IT staffing and consulting company. So we really put that focus in making people feel bought into our culture as a company, and building those things like the military ally community that we have, our Project Patriot program, just advocating for those folks and building that trust very early on, is how we've been able to create kind of more of that veteran ready, not just veteran friendly focused approach. So I totally agree with getting involved very early on with those folks, doing the resume reviews, especially if you're like in the HR and recruiting side of the house. You have this expertise that they would appreciate going into the civilian workforce and stuff too. So leaning into that, but also just educating ourselves where veteran skill sets are really beneficial, and being able to have that in-house knowledge for people of helping veterans kind of figure out where they could go with the skill set that they have, but also being able to educate our clients on why a veteran might fit really well for some of their opportunities too. So just being able to advocate for those folks. So that's been a really big best practice, is just more of educating ourselves on where veterans are coming from, especially from our team that have not come from a military background. And that can be scary going in as like a recruiter too, first, is asking those questions and stuff to veterans. But as long as you can build that trust early on, and be able to feel like you're advocating for them long term, that's been super helpful, and just offering up the type of expertise that we have as recruiters and everything to help them transition much easier into those interviews, the resumes, the mock interviews, like LinkedIn, just things that they could use some extra support and help on. I just think that trust is so important.
Thanks, Carol. Those are all great advice. Brian, I saw you nodding your head there in agreement with a number of those. Did you have more to add?
Now, you know what? You guys have said it perfectly. I could not agree more, because, at the end of the day, I sat in that shoe kneecap to kneecap with those wounded warriors, right? And trust is so important. And not only that, building trust with all the partners in the military community. And, because it doesn't happen overnight. And how we do it, you got to scale it, right? We got to, like, Gary said, he's got a 4-person team, but how do you utilize your teammates, your ERGs and other recruiters? So we have an ambassador program. So Northrop Grumman is, fortunate to have places all around the country. So we use those ERG and those ambassadors. We make up 25% of our company and go out to those bases and establish those relationships. At the end of the day, it's a people business, right? It's establishing those networks, those relationships. And so that, I love what you guys say. The first time you meet them is not at the interview. So I could not agree more.
No, that's great. And I think it's interesting to have the perspective of somebody who transitioned and who was in the military. Yeah. And you have a different prism than folks that haven't had that purview. To that point, Troy or Dylan, did you have anything to add as somebody who has transitioned and or best practices you have in your own company as a result, and maybe the input you've given to lead to that?
Yeah, I'd say I'd just like to emphasize the point too of, getting involved, especially with those partnerships. MSSA is a really good example of that, of, building that veteran ready brand for your company. And I believe Gary mentioned it too, is like, get involved with the actual partnerships themselves of, be a speaker, inform these transitioning service members what your company is, how you can help them out on their journey. And then, like MSSA offers too, you can really get involved on the job fair front or virtual hiring fairs, on-base events, just to continue to build that brand and reputation in the veteran space, and get connected there. So that's a big one, I'd say.
Troy, any other pearls of wisdom before we move on to another question?
No, I think everyone definitely hit on every point I would have made. I think that connection is the key point. We have a dedicated veteran recruiter who makes those one-on-one connections with people and helps guide them through their journey into CarMax, and make that connection between them and the hiring managers, and oftentimes that don't have a veteran background or are not sure how to talk to a veteran. It just helps make that connection. I think that's key.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Caitlin, I'll start with you on the next one since we haven't heard from you yet. But how are you intentional? How is TIAG intentional in marketing to veteran and military spouse talent? Like, what are some of your best practices along those lines?
Yeah, no, thank you. And I think this actually can weave back into the question you just asked. And I wanted to provide a lens from an organization who were smaller. And so my team is 3 people, to include myself, for all recruiting activities. And so utilizing, intentional marketing as well as other best practices is like the only way that we can attract veteran talent, because we don't have the resources that some of the larger organizations have to have sole departments that focus just on veteran recruiting. And so leveraging our people with real stories is a huge part of this. We're about 28% veteran at our organization. And so that is one of our best practices, is how can our small recruiting team leverage the 28% veteran population that we have, not just for marketing intentionally, but also for engaging the IT talent. And so we have really solid referral programs that we utilize. So employee referrals are huge at our organization anyway, but let's leverage that almost 30% veteran population to just build that pipeline of more veteran talent, especially in the IT space. We can do that by, sharing real stories of our folks, highlighting our successful, MSSA alumni, just sharing a little bit more and tying those leaders into the process of acquiring talent really helps us. We also have leaders at the organization that are veterans who will speak on podcasts or go to events and sit on panels and discussions, very much like was spoken about in the first question. Get involved. Bring those folks to hiring fairs. Luckily, most hiring fairs now are virtual, so you can connect a lot of your leaders in different ways. But I would just say keeping that engagement up with the folks that you have within the organization, whether you're large or small, that will definitely help with the building that, brand around hiring veterans talent.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. The storytelling is so important, and also the engagement. I think you hit on it with that. Anybody else have anything they'd like to point out that their company's doing in terms of the marketing and bringing in veteran and spouse talent? Was that Dylan? Oh, go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, just real quick. I don't know if it falls directly into the category of marketing, but I think it's valuable to point out the Department of Defense SkillBridge internship program, which essentially is a marketing tool, but it's also a talent acquisition tool. We're a longtime partner, I think over 5 years of sponsoring SkillBridge. And SkillBridge, for those of you who don't know, is a program by which active duty service members can spend up to 6 months of their last months in service in a role, an internship role in a sponsoring company. And it serves a couple purposes. It helps the transitioning service member really get acquainted with the corporate environment. It also demonstrates their skill set, which can be very valuable at the end of the internship when it comes to hiring. We look at SkillBridge as a talent pipeline. And we've hired over 65% of all our interns over 5 years. But where does it come into marketing? Well, you get onto the DoD website, the SkillBridge website. You advertise the type of work you're promoting for internships. You're sponsoring for internships, and the interns who are successful and get hired. They become marketing agents for the company. In many cases, we've had intern graduates return to their parent organization and recruit the next generation of interns for us. So it's sort of a self-fulfilling marketing tool there. And at the end of the day, it's also a really effective talent pipeline, hiring those folks into the company, make great new employees. And SkillBridge is essentially a test ride, both for them and us, to check out whether they're going to be a good fit in the company.
Dylan, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, definitely agree on the SkillBridge front. I manage a SkillBridge program that we have here at Apex in partnership with Vets to PM, and the referral network that comes from that program it's crazy. Like Gary said, we've had people to go back to their commands, and maybe it's their leadership coming in when they're ready to transition or something like that, or their buddies that they were with. So definitely recommend that. I'd also say another best practice for marketing is having your own maybe like veteran initiative or recruitment page up on your website that transitioning service members, veterans, stuff like that can come to and kind of view what options your company is providing for them, whether it's through that transition or even looking for that career post-service. And then one thing that we do here at Apex too is we have a career resource library with tons of webinars, panel discussions, videos on everything from resume writing to interview prep to veteran resources as well. So that's another thing that I recommend is throw that up on your website. So it's a landing page for those members to come to.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Anyone else? Brian, were you starting to say something?
I mean, I love everything that you guys said. And I would say on top of that, Caitlin, I love the stories. As much as they want to hear from the GOs, nothing against Gary and Chris on the office or on the line here. But what we like to highlight is the E4s, right? The E5s, the O1s and O2s. So when you do those success stories, because service members want to see themselves in those shoes, right? They want to see themselves transition. And then also, I just say, you could we do a monthly military information event. So we have recruiters, all our military team on a monthly call that people can call in, talk to the recruiters, get tips and tricks for transitioning, resumes, all that good stuff. It's low cost, low hanging fruit that almost anybody can do.
Those are all great ideas. Did anyone else have anything to share that hasn't spoken on this one yet?
Yeah, I had something. And hi, everyone. I am
Hi,
Jessica
Jess.
and representing.
Sorry we started
Berksource.
early. Why don't we quickly let you introduce yourself? Because you were at our original first hiring conference, employer partner conference, and you were a returning member. So we want to make sure everybody knows who you are, and we love BrookSource.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, yes. Hi, everyone. I know Scarlett introduced me beforehand, but I am Jessica Olson, and I run our early career and veteran hiring program, and specifically our Seattle office, where Scarlett's more on the national side. But yeah, when it comes to intentionally marketing to veteran military spouse talent, I think we start with our partners. Specifically, like, for example, MSSA, building a really good relationship with those partners and better understanding what their talent pipelines look like, and everything there is really important for us to be able to then have those really intentional conversations and relationships with the candidates that come out of those partnerships as well, and fully understand where they're coming from and that background. And really, like people were alluding to before, getting to know that talent before they're on the job market and being able to build those relationships with them. So it is more intentional when we are reaching out to those candidates, and we're holding things like workshops and resume reviews and everything to get them career ready as well. But I think something on more of the recruitment side, when we're working with our veteran talent and when we're working with our external customers that we are placing these individuals into, we're also acting as advocates for the veterans as they're going into these opportunities. So instead of just, taking a veteran, putting them into an interview and saying, good luck, you got it. I think there's a lot of prep that we do on our side with the candidate, but also a lot of prep that we do with the manager as well to make sure that they're ready to have a veteran join their environment and they're asking the right questions and they really understand their experience. And we're also able to be an advocate and answer any questions that the manager might have about their military background and what that might have looked like and how things can translate and how they are a good fit for this role prior to the interview and after the interview as well. So just being really intentional, not only marketing to these candidates, but also marketing to the clients that we're working with and making sure they understand what a veteran candidate can bring and what that specific veteran candidate can bring to their organization as well.
Yeah, all so true. And basically, you weren't on when Terry was talking about this, but being veteran ready and conveying that is really important. So let's move on to the next question. So what should every talent recruiter know about screening and interviewing a qualified veteran candidate for a role with your company? Who would like to start us with that one? Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, I'll jump on this, Beth. Thank you. I think, and it doesn't just go for recruiters, but I think it also applies to hiring managers and pretty much everybody in the chain. I think the single most important thing for us to realize on the employer side about our veterans is that their transition is the most stressful thing that they have experienced short of combat operations, and maybe even more so than that. And I've heard, I talked to veterans from all the services at every rank, and that is kind of the most common comment I hear, that the transition is the most stressful thing they've done. So we got to take that into account. And what will that mean? Well, for starters, they probably never, a veteran transitioning service member rather, has probably never negotiated for a salary. And so that whole process is going to be a bit awkward. And we got to understand that's not a reflection on their skill set. They're not a reflection on their experience or their dedication or commitment. It's just that it's something they haven't done before. In many cases, it may be their first interview for a job. Most of our assignments in the military are on orders, not on interviews and options and invitations. So that's another thing to consider. And this one other thing, they may have difficulty translating their military skills and experiences and jobs into a civilian role as it applies to the job that they're applying to. Our transitioning service members seem to be kind of stuck in this box of their resume has to be this all-purpose sort of biography, and not tailoring it to the job they're applying to, and then having difficulty in translating their experience into sort of civilian equivalent terms. I was just coaching an Army captain this morning who had CEO on his resume for the time he spent as a company commander. Well, he was probably in charge of 120 soldiers, but that doesn't quite equate to the CEO level. And so just having a little bit of an awkwardness there in terms of translating things, and not a reflection on his skill set or anything else, but just inexperience in that area, and that's an area we can help them on. And then the other thing I see with more senior people, senior NCOs and senior officers, is having a difficulty translating their leadership level into an appropriate level of leadership and responsibility in the company. I might talk to a brigade command sergeant major who's comfortable in leading and helping command 3,000 soldiers in a brigade, Army brigade, but and that's probably not going to translate to a job at that level of responsibility and leadership level in a company right away, at least, until they get their foot in the door, get some business experience and that sort of thing. So kind of having that conversation, and then explaining to recruiters that these are some pitfalls or challenges our job applicants face when transition from the military, especially if they're making a career change. That's where MSSA comes in helping our transitioning service members gain a new set of skills or honing a set of skills, because people that are making a career change, I think, face the greatest challenges in this transitioning into civilian career, because they got to learn a whole new skill set as opposed to applying the skills that they've learned through training and experiences so in uniform. For that, I'll turn it back. Thanks.
Thanks, Gary. All really good insights again. Anyone else have any more to add to that question?
Yeah,
I'll just go briefly.
Go ahead.
It's all
first.
about it's all about leveling, right? Is leveling that service member. So teaching levels, because between an O4 and an E4, right? Just making sure, because a lot of our recruiters, 90% of them have no military affiliation. So training. So leveling ranks, schoolhouses, MOSs, and things like that. So and like Gary said, and the hiring managers. Yes, we could talk all about the attributes and everything, but truly, and then having a resource, whether it's personal or a library that they can go to level these folks out. Sorry, Scarlett, go ahead.
Oh my gosh, no, that totally. I 100% agree. And I think just recognizing that you don't have to be an expert in the military or an expert in veteran hiring. You just have to have that willingness and ability to advocate for people, and kind of that vulnerability and like educating yourself, especially if you don't have military experience. You're never going to be an expert in the military, and recognizing that. So coming into those conversations with veterans that are looking for opportunities, and having that vulnerability, asking questions to really understand that veteran's experience and how it can be applicable to your job or your company that you are recruiting for. But we're again going back to like working with places like MSSA and those intentional partnerships. Those have helped me, and I know Jess and all of us so much in understanding just more about the veteran community and being able to have those relationships to ask questions. I can't tell you probably how many questions that I've asked Terry and Christy over the past 5-6 years now that probably would people would be like, how did you not know that? But I had no experience there. So building those very genuine, intentional, trustworthy relationships gives you that opportunity to feel more confident in recruiting for veteran talent or talking to people, because it can be nerve-wracking of like where to start, how to explain when you don't know any MLS codes or you don't know all the titles of jobs and stuff that people are doing in their military service. But as long as you have that willingness and that vulnerability to like ask questions and really advocate for them, and not just like, okay, they don't match every single thing on my job description of these skills that they have to have, and just moving on, as long as you can continue to ask questions and dive deeper into that experience.
Great. Anyone else have more to add on that question?
I just wanted to circle back briefly to how Gary started. Don't make assumptions on what the veteran candidate may or may not know about our industries or the hiring process. Communication with all candidates is important. Candidate management should be a recruiter's like number one focus, but even more specifically with veteran talent, like step far away from transactional recruiting and make it relationship building. Ask your questions, but listen to the responses, and you're going to glean some insights into like, wow, they don't understand, and that's okay. Let me walk you through, what does PTO versus FTO versus this versus that, like, sure, the military is full of acronyms, but so are our industries, but we can't make an assumption that they translate. So be an educator too, and really focus on that, that candidate management, and make no assumptions.
And I think that's so true. I often coach when we meet candidates at the various recruiting events we go to about not being transactional. It's really important to to build relationships and to build them early before you need the employer, and to be genuine. So I think that's something that I really underscore. So thank you for saying that, Caitlin. I'll move on to the next question. Are there unique skill sets that a veteran candidate has over non-veteran candidates? And I'm going to start with Troy on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the two big ones are the ability to work in teams and leadership skills. A lot of, especially when you're talking about someone coming maybe out of MSSA, as opposed to a traditional college grad, they haven't had work experience. They haven't had working as a team, working in diverse environments even. And our veterans definitely have that. They're coming in, they've worked with diverse talent, diverse groups, diverse cultures. They've been in diverse cultures. They've had the ability to work as a team under austere circumstances, and many of them have led in some way, shape, or form, either a team or a large group, or even larger than that, depending on their rank and how long they were in. So I think those are really the things that set them apart from your traditional someone coming straight out of college or a basic technical program, that lends them to give more to a company than your standard applicant.
Yeah, appreciate that. Dylan, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'd say another unique skill set too is that just discipline and work ethic that comes from those in the military. I've seen, especially from like our Skill Bridge program as well, just candidates come in, they have that hunger to learn. They want to secure that spot for themselves when they transition. And you can really see that. I've had a few residents, we typically do training for certifications, and some of them knock out some of the hardest certifications that are out there in the cyberspace within a short period of time because they're hungry and they want to get after it. So I'd say that's one thing that I see from the veteran perspective too.
Great, thank you. We're getting close to time here, but I wanted to give you each the chance. First, I wanted to ask one final question, and then I wanted to give you all a moment to just share one key insight you might have. But I'd like to know why is company culture so important to hiring and retaining veterans? Would anyone like to start us off with that?
I'll just go.
Sure, Brian.
So culture is so important. We're, at Northrop Grumman, a lot of the stuff that we do is in direct support of the military and or building things for the military. So for us, when we're talking about culture, we also talk about mission and values, right? So, we may not pay the most money, we may not be in the right location, but the value proposition is, the culture, the mission that you're supporting, the people you're supporting, and, the values that we held are synonymous with what they do in the military. So with a company, hey, even if you don't pay the most money, talk about your culture, talk about what you offer to that candidate above and beyond, whether it's work-life balance or whatever it may be, because it's not all about the money. It's about, finding a great fit for you, your family, and making it work for you. So it's very important.
I couldn't
Yeah, go
agree
ahead,
more
Troy.
with Brian. Absolutely, that's what brought me to CarMax. CarMax wasn't even on my radar when I was separating from the Air Force. I knew the company, but didn't know much about it, and wasn't looking in the car industry necessarily. But the culture was such a big thing. I met them through a Hiring Our Heroes virtual career fair, and the individual speaking at that career fair was one of our talent acquisition managers, and he talked about the culture. I think, oh, that's what I'm looking for. I want something that fits kind of the values. Like Brian said, the values of our company, putting people first, doing the right thing, which is integrity, which in the Air Force is one of our core values. So it's like, wow, these values match up with my values, and that's where I want to be. I want my next career. I'm not looking for my next job. I'm looking for my next career after my career in the Air Force. So the culture was so important, and I think that's key too, is doing the research and putting it out there to the veteran community of what is your company all about. And Brian made a good point about we don't pay the most either. There's certainly companies that you can make lots more money, but what's more important? That work-life balance, that culture, that, getting along with the people you work with, how they do things, all of that talks to the culture.
So true. Thank you for that. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to give you each the chance I'm going to go round robin and give you a chance to say anything that may relate to this topic that you didn't get a chance to say. I don't know. I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but who would like to begin with maybe something that we haven't covered yet that you would like to share with this group?
I'll go first.
Okay, Kayla.
So, still kind of on the topic of culture, I think it was pointed out earlier that the transition period could be the most challenging in a veteran's life potentially. So, keeping in mind that as we're hiring veteran talent, they're looking for a place to belong, and an organization to belong to, and a mission to belong to, as we've heard so far in this discussion. So, I think that the most successful veteran hiring processes align with creating a space where a veteran can feel like they belong. They might not be the exact fit for your position, but by building that relationship and creating that space for them, it could be a future hire, if not immediate. And you're helping them along the way. So every discussion that you have with a veteran, whether they fit your organization or not, is going to be something that makes an impact in their life, as they are, in the job seeking phase of the next time in their career. So I just think that's so important to acknowledge. And what we are here to do as, hiring teams is to give them that place to belong and a mission that they can, find a sense of purpose in. And I think if you tie all of those things in, you'll have a very successful veterans hiring practice.
That is great advice. All of that totally underscore and believe in. Go ahead, Brian.
I just got one thing. One of my, we also did Marine for Life when I was with the Marine Corps. And the one thing we used to say between veteran friendly or veteran ready, whatever you want to say, is if you can give experience, what are you doing above and beyond to support that veteran in their transition, right? So companies who are able in their job descriptions to give, credit towards military experience, right? Either, 5 years of, industry experience, or if they say in lieu of that, military experience. So, take a look at your job descriptions, and how you write them, and see if they can be military friendly, so that you're inclusive of their experience and count that towards leveling in job descriptions. Just a quick thought.
Yeah, great point. Anyone else want to leave us with a final thought?
Very great point there. And I did want to just mention really quickly on the last question that we did have when it comes to creating that culture and that environment. I think we talk about hiring veterans and making sure we're getting them in the door, but I think what it comes down to is also that retention and making sure that we're creating that space for the veteran to want to stay long term, and this be a place that we continue to hire veterans, and this be just a very comfortable environment, like Caitlin was saying there before too. Giving them a mentor, connecting them to other veterans in the company, connecting them to their ERGs, whatever it might be, is something that is just really imperative when it comes to the long-term longevity of a veteran being in your organization as well.
Great. Gary, you had something to say?
Yeah, no, really great points everybody's making here. And
Mhm.
I just want to add one other thing, and that is that, we've been talking about the external piece in terms of reaching out to marketing and enabling the transition of the service members into the company and that sort of thing. But another thing to add into the mix is the internal side in terms of informing, educating, training your recruiters, your hiring managers, everybody up the chain on all the things we've been talking about here today, the inherent values of the veteran, and why they're a good fit for the company. The fact we didn't mention this, but if you're a federal government contractor, maybe the single biggest advantage the veterans have is their active security clearance, which allows them to access the work environment. About 80% of our jobs require security clearance. Well, veterans, most of them have one, not veterans, the transitioning service members. So that's an advantage. But having some internal program, I think Brian mentioned it also, having an internal program to kind of keep the leadership within the company familiar with, trained on, acquainted with, comfortable with all of the aspects of the veteran and the military job applicants, their environment, the challenges they face, and the values they bring to the company. I think is an important aspect to the any sort of internal company training program. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. And those will have to be our final word on this topic as we are at time. I was going to ask you all, I'm going to have you put it in the chat since we didn't have time for it. Who's going to win the World Series, Yankees or Dodgers? Who do we think? So everyone tell us who you think, and we'll see if we're right. But with that, thank you all panelists. This was a great discussion. We appreciate your time. Gary, Brian, Dylan, Jess, Caitlin, Scarlett, and Troy. It's so great to have this time with you. And we look forward to your continued wisdom as the rest of this day goes on. So thank you very much.